In the previous video, we took a look at this beautiful little figure in the background here that I'm going to delete in a sec, our weird pseudo-human thing. So let's delete that and get it out of our project for now. And we're going to look at a bit more detail about this player, first-person player that I've given you, as well as some of the scripts that are involved inside of it. First, let's pop this open and see what I have going on here. I will notice right away that I have multiple tiers of hierarchies. I have, inside of my first-person player, a head. I'm actually going to collapse this down, a body, and something called a ground check. I'm going to be showing you a slightly different way to process collision and movement. There's a ton of different ways. I'm going to try to give you a few different alternatives early in the course, so you have some options to work with. And of course, I made just this box for the head, and this kind of like, I guess you'd call it a cylinder. It's just one of these resized for the body. And they each have their own materials that I've applied, and notice I've organized them here. This should be called ground 2. I think I made a different ground color. And I have 3 different components. If I look at my player head here, I'll notice something, is that I have a separate script applied to my head that's different than the script applied to the whole master object that controls everything. The reason why is that I want my head to be able to move somewhat independently of the whole body. Because the body, I want it to be able to, everything to move forward and back. So everything needs to kind of lock together. It would make no sense for the head to like drift away on its own. And rotations, now the head can in real life rotate differently than the body. And that's a choice I have to make as a game designer. Do I want it to be able to rotate sideways differently? Debatable. But I definitely, in this type of experience, want my head to be able to rotate up and down differently. And now this angle here is not a great one to see that in action, but the script will make it run a lot better. So the functionality I'm looking for is I want my player to be able to everything move side to side and turn as a whole, but up and down is only the head. I don't want the body actually tilting in weird directions. Like, it makes no sense for the body to be going down like this every time I'm looking down. I don't want the whole system. I just want this head. And notice that I've also, inside of the head, attached this gun that I made as a child of the head. When I did some playtesting, I realized that it looked better and it felt better if the gun actually moved with the position of the head. So that when I look up, the gun is pointing up, look down, the gun is pointing down. That's kind of how a shooter typically works. And so that's what I've decided to do. I'm just going to Control Z back into everything's in the original position for playtesting later. But that's what's going on in the hierarchy here. The actual camera itself is built in to the head because the head is what I want to control the view the player has. So I've moved the camera from being a separate object. I don't want to change my prefab, but the camera before was out in the world just as a normal standalone object, but I've put it attached to the head so that wherever the head moves, so does the camera. And so here's my view with the camera. If I tilt my head to the side like this, my camera view is now aligned with the head, which feels so much better than having the camera, not match up with the head's direction. And it's also a much easier way to control the camera perspective. The camera actually has, well, it actually does have a bit of its own script attached here, but we'll talk about a little bit why that's the case a little bit later. For now, I want to talk finally about the gun. Excuse me. The gun is also underneath the head. And as I said before, it's because I want the gun to follow the motion of the head. But within the gun, I have multiple components. Let's just move the gun around separately for a sec and see what's kind of going on here. Oops, I renamed it. If I click this gun hierarchy item and move it, take a look. The gun itself is moving around. In it, I have the body, the handle, just simple objects I made, really, really simple creation, and something called the muzzle, which is actually an empty object. It has no visual to it, and what I'm using it for is a spawn point for how our gun shoots, and we'll be adding that a little bit later. This is where bullets are going to be spawning, and there's a reason why I moved it a bit out from the gun, so there wasn't accidental collisions going on. But what this allows us to do, by having the gun attached to the head, it can move up and down, and with all of it being attached to the player, is that now that I've moved the gun further out, it's just further away. If I move it in when I select it, now when the player moves, it's nice and close. And I have a nice easy way of figuring out what is the best position for this gun to be for the gameplay. Do I want it nice and high? Do I want it kind of over to the side a little bit more, back further? What looks and feels the best? I can really easily play test that because of how the hierarchies work. In the next video, I'm going to talk about this custom movement system in brief.